Thank you and welcome to the regular business meeting for the District of Squamish. Today is Tuesday, May 16th, 2023. And as always, we're gathered to do our work today on the traditional unceded territory of the Squamish Nation. Please be advised that this council meeting is being live streamed, recorded, and will be available to the public to view on the District of Squamish website following the meeting. If you have any concerns, please notify the corporate officer present at the meeting. Could I have someone move adoption of the agenda, please? Moved by Councillor French, second by Councillor Stoner. All in favor? Motion carries. And our first order of business is a delegation. And I'm going to start us off by declaring conflict on this particular item as matters that relate to the Squamish Days Lager Sports Show. I have a perception of bias as I'm the Master of Ceremonies, volunteer Master of Ceremonies for the event. So I will step out of the room and I will defer to Acting Mayor Hamilton. We'll be back.
Thank you very much. Delegation item number 3, delegations and proclamations. We have a proclamation request for Squamish Days Lager Sports Association, and we have a delegation, Jacqulin McNicol. Yeah. The president of the Squamish Loggers Day Sporting Association. You've got 5 minutes to address the council. We look forward to hearing from you.
Okay, thank you very much for having me. As was just noted, my name is Jacqulin McNicol. I'm the volunteer president for the Squamish Days Lager Sports Association, and I must say it's nice that I can hear you because last time there were some problems and I couldn't, so this is a lot better. Thank you. I am here on behalf of the Squamish Days Lager Sports Association to request that the District of Squamish Council issue a proclamation to recognize the Squamish Days Lager Sports Festival as an event of municipal significance in Squamish as it celebrates its 66th annual event this BCD long weekend from August 3rd to August 6th. Our event is the longest running event in Squamish and in the Sea to Sky corridor. And throughout the weekend, it draws thousands of people to local businesses, to our event. It creates tourism and it creates a true sense of community. You know, they say it takes a village, but in this case, it takes the community of Squamish to pull the event off. And that is very apparent by everyone involved. I can look around at the people here. Mayor Amran Herford is the Master of Ceremonies. I rode on the float with John last year. We have many people from the District of Squamish who come out to volunteer every year, and that's just a small portion of it. We have businesses who support us. Today, someone just dropped off a check for $6,000 as a sponsor, and I didn't even know they received my email. So I thought that was pretty cool, but that's the kind of stuff that happens. And, you know, we partner with 6 local proration groups to make the festival happen. It's the Howe Sound Curling Club, the Rotary Club of Squamish, the Squamish Royal Canadian Legion, Royal Canadian Marine Search and Rescue, the Squamish Elks, and the Squamish Valley Equestrian Association. I think I missed the curling club there, I'm sorry. But all our profits are split 100% to local nonprofits. There are no paid positions on our board. Everything we do is 100% volunteer based. Now I'm getting really nervous. So yeah, I just, it's an awesome event. I mean, I know that it means the world to me. It takes a ton of my time, but thanks to my employer, which is myself half the time, I'm able to find that balance. And, you know, even last year when we needed more volunteers, a lot of people came down and they said the same thing, like, oh, my boss let me go early to help Squamish Days. So I don't think we see that a lot, and it's something that we need to keep in this community. So let's keep it alive for another 66 years. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Council. John? Councillor French.
Thanks, Councillor Hamilton. I have a question. I think it's a really important question that I'm hoping we can have answered. There's a lot I love about the weekend, but the culinary highlight for me is the Rotary Beef Barbecue. And I think there's some important news that needs to be shared with the community about changes to the Rotary Beef Barbecue? Could you
Oh,
outline
are you talking about ticket sales, maybe?
the online?
Yes.
You cannot buy beef on a
But
the
now-
day of.
This is hot off the press.
Okay.
Given the feedback from last year, we're kind of going back to the lottery system. So you line up, and if there's beef, you will get beef. It works really well selling the tickets in advance. It's good for planning, but we know that we're going to sell out the beef. So yeah, we've gone back to the old days for the 66th where there's lineups. You won't have to get a ticket. We did change a few things just for improvements there and, less work for our volunteers. But if the Rotary is watching right now, that's new. Thank you, John.
Yeah, that's great news for people who rely on flip phones. Thanks.
Yeah.
Councillor Anderson.
66 years. That takes us back to 1958. And British Columbia was celebrating a centennial, the centennial of the founding of the province. And the government of the day wanted to promote tourism and put together a grant program. And Squamish applied. So did Kelowna, New Westminster, Nanaimo, and everyone else. And a book was produced listing all of the festivals that got money that year. And this is the only one that still survives. And that really says something about our community and about the people that have been behind this festival all these years. Your partnerships that help you run it and help you bring together these volunteers and the sponsorships. It's a recipe, a formula for success that other events locally and other community festivals, I'm sure, can and have borrowed from. Congratulations and best wishes.
With that, I will search for a motion to Councillor Pettingill moves the staff recommendation. Councillor Stoner seconds the staff recommendation. Would you like to speak to it? Or?
Just like to thank you and all the volunteers for all the time that's put into this amazing festival, which is a cornerstone of our community, and happy to recognize this as an event of municipal significance, which it definitely is, and yeah, looking forward to it.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Greenlaw.
I'm happy to support this motion. I try to go to Logger Days every year. I will be out of town this year, and I'm very bummed about that. But it is such an amazing event. Like, the athleticism is incredible, and it's so much fun. So thank you so much for all the work you do. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, with that, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you very much. Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda, we have consideration of unscheduled public attendance. If there's anyone that has a matter that can't wait till our next regular meeting, this is your opportunity. Seeing none, we'll move on. We have no public hearings tonight. And now we're on to, we have no timed items. Next up will be the consent agenda. And if anyone would like to pull anything, I'm going to start us off. I'd like to pull the correspondence 5, the letter from Mr. Leclerc from Fortis, BC. And is there anyone else? Go ahead, Councillor Pettingill.
Number I7BI, the simple language update to boost climate awareness.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Stoner.
I'd like to pull letter 7B4, please.
4. So we have 1, 4, and 5 at this point. Anybody else? No. Okay. So could I have someone? Just double check. Yep. Could I have someone move the consent agenda? Councillor French, and second by Councillor Pettingill. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. And then we had just an update for information. And are we getting a presentation on this, or is this just for information on the housing needs report, this final draft? Oh, that was consent. That was sorry, consent agendas after that. Thank you. Consideration of, thank you. of, it just had a note next to it on mine that confused me. Consideration of council committee recommendations. So this, we have recommendations from our committee of the whole meeting last week. So under number one, we have recommendations from the committee of the whole related to the Garibaldi Estates neighborhood plan. Moved by Councillor French, seconded by Councillor Stoner. All in favor? Motion. Any opposed? Councillor Anderson opposed. Oh,
Sorry, I'm unclear on what we're voting on. Are we going to split it out like we did last time? Or are we
So-
saying everything from committee of the whole will be accepted?
so we're doing each topic separately, and if there's separate motions, we can consider that. But the mover, which was Councillor French, moved the recommendations of the committee of the whole regarding the Garibaldi Estates. There's that one, that piece. So we procedurally we got through the vote there. I just want to make sure that went well. I think Councillor Anderson opposed, and sorry, Councillor Greenlaw, can you clarify your vote on that, or would you like us to?
Well, I just regarding the splitting of the west and eastern portion.
Oh, sorry, we're on the this is Garibaldi Estates. I think you're
Baldy Estates, yeah.
so yeah, we'll do one at a time, and then we will get to, then we do Village of Bailey and down list. And I feel like you have some questions around one of the other topics there.
I might.
Okay, what's that? So on this vote, I want to clarify our vote because I kind of had a wavering hand in the middle there. I just wanted to make sure. Should we do the vote again? I just wasn't sure because I had Councillor Anderson opposed.
I'll be opposed, yep.
Okay, so there you go. Thank you. So Councillor Anderson, Greenlaw opposed. Thank you. Moving on. The village on Bailey Street. Again, some recommendations here. Thank you, Councillor French. Second by Councillor French moves. Councillor Hamilton seconds. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Then we had the Squamish Wildlife Habitat Connectivity Project update with a few, and that's there. I'll move that one. If there's a seconder, Councillor Stoner, all in favor. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Next, we have Marine and Estuary Coordination Planning Update and Recommendations. And Councillor Anderson, did you have some? Yes, go ahead.
Yes, Mayor Herford, I would like to propose an alternate motion to that was adopted May 9th. And I have distributed copies, but I'll just briefly, the motion is in 4 parts. The motion that was passed last time included, to begin with, that the District of Squamish reallocate 2023 carry forward special project funds in the amount of $20,000 held for estuary coordination to work with Squamish Nation to co-facilitate community stakeholder meetings respecting marine access at the south end of the Spit Road and New Spit Island. The next clause of the motion passed last week I wish to amend, and that is that the following 2 Estuary Management Plan and Estuary Management Committee topics from the May 9 Committee of the Whole meeting be deferred. Those 2 topics were that the District of Squamish establish working groups to advise on marine and estuary-related planning on an as-needed project basis, coupled with associated dedicated resourcing in lieu of proceeding with the creation of a standing marine coordinating body at this time. And the second one that I suggest be deferred is that the District of Squamish jointly review and establish a clear framework and memorandum of understanding with Squamish Nation in the province of BC, addressing ongoing management considerations and public access in the Squamish Squamish Wildlife Management Area under continued intergovernmental engagement. The May 9 motion concluded with the recommendation that the following 4 documents be made available, be brought back to council, and I'm suggesting that they be made available as resources for orientation of council. They were the Estuary Management Plan, the Estuary Management Committee Terms of Reference, the OCP SEMP Integration Review, and the review of the Estuary Management Committee Terms of Reference. I wish to add an item, a 5th item, and that is the Wildlife Management Area Management Plan of 2007 for council's orientation, for general orientation. Finally, I wish to add a clause, and that is that the District of Squamish staff call a meeting of Squamish Estuary Management Committee, and that at that meeting step down from the position of chair. If there's a seconder, I'll briefly highlight my rationale for this amended motion.
It's seconded by Councillor French. Go ahead, Councillor Anderson.
Yeah, with some friendly advice from Mayor Herford, we strove to put forward a more practical approach to the action item, and that is that a meeting be called of this Estuary Management Committee. And at that meeting, that the district stepped down from the position of chair. The items I brought forward were for orientation, and I think at this time that's just to reinforce that was my intention, is that these constitute the mandates of not only the plan, but of the management committee, and would provide council with an update from 2007, 2016, and 2018 of major milestones in that plan. Otherwise, the staff did not intend to devote district resources to a standing marine coordinating body at this time anyway. And a meeting of the Estuary Management Committee, which may happen in some months' time, can address where the Estuary Management Plan stakeholders, including the district, go with respect to a governance body.
Councillor Stoner.
Thank you. Through the chair, I'm just wondering if I can seek clarity from Councillor Anderson on his motion. In the copy that I have in front of me, the red lettering says omit to a future committee of the whole meeting for consideration on the second that clause. And so I'm just confused as to whether you actually want those 2 topics, that the District of Squamish establish working groups and that the District of Squamish jointly review and establish a clear framework and memorandum of understanding the Squamish Nation and the province. What the intention is for those? Is that we're supporting those this evening, or that they're coming back for discussion?
Thank you. That the intention, my intention, is to defer them indefinitely, not to set an agenda, to propose that they be brought back for a committee of the whole meeting, but to defer them simply and indefinitely.
So, Ms. Arthur, I haven't dealt with something. I don't recall dealing with the deferral language previously. Could you provide some guidance here?
So it's not typical that we would defer it indefinitely. You just would not move it. They would not be included in any motion. They would just die on the table.
And if this is a procedural, if we were to refer these back to staff for consideration potentially after this SEMC meeting, that would be procedurally, that would be how you want to do that?
Typically, you would refer it back to staff for a reason, though. So be referred back to staff for further consideration following a SEMC meeting, something along those lines. It would be something like that.
Okay. Yes, go ahead, Councillor Pettijohn.
Yeah, I guess 2 thoughts. One, I would have trouble supporting this as written because it seems if we step down as the chair, it seems like our goal might be to disband SEMC, not just step down as chair. And so I think if that is our goal, that would be our direction to staff.
I guess I'm a bit concerned that we would just step down as chair, but then who becomes chair and people haven't been showing up. And so I guess I'm more comfortable with the original staff recommendation because that suggested a process going forward. We have the OCP with the plan and a process to sort of manage it. But the idea of just stepping down from the chair just seems to leave things floating in the wind indefinitely. I wonder if it makes sense to just sever the motion, move forward on the first bullet, and I guess I would appreciate maybe if my colleague came back with a motion with a bit more direction on how to move forward on the committee, proposed direction, because this just seems like no direction, which I'm not entirely comfortable with.
Councillor Stoner?
Thank you, through the chair. Just reflecting on my council colleagues' comments there, I think it actually, and I made this comment back in the committee whole, I don't think it's our job around this table to determine what happens with SEMC, and I don't think it's our staff's role to determine what happens with SEMC. I think SEMC needs to decide that for itself. I personally am comfortable supporting that portion of this motion because I don't think we have the staff capacity or resources at this time to act as chair. And I think that body needs to decide how they want to move forward if we choose to step down as chair. But I would like to propose an amendment. I could try. So I would like to amend the second clause so that it reads that the following two Squamish Estuary Management Plan and Squamish Estuary Management Committee topics from the May 9th, 2023 Committee of the Whole meeting be deferred to a future Committee of the Whole following the SEMC meeting referred to in the subsequent clause of this motion. And I will send that to you in writing, Melissa.
Are you seconding the motion, Councillor Anderson? Are you seconding the motion? Yeah. Okay. Do you have any? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I will just speak to my amendment briefly. I do think that those two items should come back for discussion around this council table, depending on what happens at that SEMC meeting. So with some further direction, once we choose to step down from chair, then to bring back those two components for further discussion.
Thank you. This is on the amendment. Go ahead, Councillor Anderson.
Thank you. I'm pleased to support Councillor Stoner's amendment. I will also note that the Estuary Management Committee is not a district committee, and this Estuary Management Plan is not a district plan. It's an item of perhaps some confusion, but just so we're all clear about this, that the district does not decide to disband SEMC. It is not a district committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on this amendment? Seeing none, I'll call a question on the amendment. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Councillor Pettingill opposes. Okay, back to our main motion as amended. I will venture the comment. I appreciate the amendment and thank you, Councillor Stoner, for that. And I think that's good. My preference would have been to refer back to staff for the same timeline and wording. So I think we've effectively done the same thing at this point. So I will be supporting this. I do think my concern is just that there are needs now, and I think that our first bullet around funding and working towards some solutions for access, particularly with wind sports, is hopefully will bridge the gap. But I'm not interested in much in delay of any sort, really, in addressing the issues in the estuary. So I eagerly await the that SEMC meeting and seeing how that goes, so we can figure out a path forward on all things estuary together. So with that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Pettingill opposes. Motion carries. Thank you, Councillor Anderson, for the adjustments there. I think it got us to a good place. And next we have the North Crumpet Neighborhood Plan update and subsequent motions. I would be willing to entertain this as one piece, or in separate pieces. I just wanted to look to Ms. Arthurs. Can we do this in one piece if council decides that the big if? But I feel like it's going to get pulled apart here anyway. So
If there's consensus, you can do it all as one.
okay, we can do it all as one if we so desire to accept the recommendation. But if someone would like to move something alternatively to that, Councillor Gula?
Yeah, I would like to pull the phased approach to planning for the Western Rise and discuss that separately, if that's possible.
Okay, I think that wasn't its own bullet point, but on its own motion. Would we pull that whole motion? So I'm just want to make sure we get this right. Would you pull the whole motion or the bullet point inside of one of the motions? Just the bullet point? Okay, so just the just that one bullet point we'll pull. Is there anyone else? Yeah, Councillor French.
Yeah, I'd like to pull out the one that refers to the 200 meters.
Yeah, that one's gonna be separate. So let's say, yeah, we'll discuss that one when we get there. So, Councillor Pettingill.
Yeah, from my perspective, bullets 1 and 3 are the same thing, I think. So I think it would be pulling both or neither.
1 and 3, sorry, they're not numbered here. You mean
so
just in the first motion?
Yeah, support a phase planning to Western Rise and then designate areas of the Western Rise as a future planning area. I think those things are tied together.
Right. I think there's I mean, this whole thing's interconnected, but are you proposing that we pull one of those to discuss?
Yeah, I mean, I would have moved the North Crumpet bullet, including bullets 2 and 4.
Okay, well, let's, I'm just trying to keep this as procedurally tight as we can. So right now, the only piece that I've heard pulled is the support for the phased approach. But maybe if there's a seconder for that, we can talk about that piece in isolation. If anyone else feels they need to pull additional pieces into that for context, then let's do that. So are you seconding? Okay, so Councillor Greenlaw pulled the support for phased approach bullet point out, and it was seconded by Councillor Hamilton. Would you like to say? That's the next piece. That's the next piece. That's okay. That's all right. We can do this. We'll get there. So is there a seconder for severing this piece about the Western Rise as proposed by Councillor Greenlaw? Are you seconding that, or are you proposing a different motion, Councillor Pettingill?
So I thought
No, there was a miscommunication over here. That was not a seconding of that motion.
Oh, okay. So I'm seconding it.
So you're seconding that we.
I am seconding.
Okay. All right, Councillor. So I'm just going to confer with staff to make sure we have the right piece here.
Okay, I just have the one bullet point pulled out for it.
That's as far
That's as far as we've gotten. So we're just moving the 3 outstanding bullets.
So I would like to discuss this bullet point before we move those other ones, because I believe they're all interrelated. So I think, I don't know how we do. I'm having a hard time processing getting my mind around this one, because I think we need to move them. I think we just need to move the bullet points individually. So, and sometimes you have to move something to vote against it if that's how you feel. That might be the path forward for these. I don't know what other action to take again besides that. But we did go through a process of moving and seconding though, so I want to understand procedurally where we are with with that. We sever it. The motion was to sever it, but I think we just go through bullet point by bullet point. If we could just have, I'm sorry, I'm looking for support here on this process because it
So-
doesn't quite.
Regarding the first motion with the bullets, only one bullet was pulled out. So the motion would be to make the motion without that one bullet and then vote on that bullet separately.
Okay, so we've pulled that, Councillor Pettingill.
So I think this is where I would like to move the first that, but only bullets 2 and 4.
Oh, yes, I'll second that.
Okay, so we've got two different things going here. So can we just rescind the first part where we severed it? Because that set us on this path, because you're moving 2 and 4. Now we've got orphaned 1 and 3.
But if one is pulled and one does not pass, then the third bullet, the future planning area, is a moot point.
Yeah, we're okay. Okay, so we're moving 2 and 4, and we'll deal with that piece first, and then we'll go to the parts that were excluded. Okay, Councillor, or anyone, any comments on these pieces that we're moving, which are bullet point 2 and 4 in the first half? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Now to the severed piece. Yeah, we've got 1 and 3 we still need to address. And Councillor Greenlaw?
Yeah, so upon further reflection, I don't think it's in the best interest of the community to have the eastern and western portions of the property considered separately in the planning process, which is what we're talking about here. I understand that it will be a phased approach to development, but for the planning process, I believe if we separate them, this could lead to a decreased level of community contributions, a less functional neighborhood plan, and potentially a decrease in protection of trails and environmental areas. Thanks.
Okay. So we need a motion that would capture that. Go ahead, Councillor Pettingill.
I think we could just have no one move it, right, and move on. If someone wants to see those, then they would move to see them.
Okay, fair enough. That's one of the paths forward here. Councillor Stoner, are you?
Well, I appreciate that is one way forward. I don't think it provides clarity around this council table or to the proponent or to staff as to what it is that we're actually trying to direct. So in light of trying to move something forward, I would suggest the following motion: that council not support a phased approach to the planning for the Western Rise. And I will leave it at that. That would be my motion.
Is there a seconder? Are you seconding that, Councillor Pettingill? Okay. Would you like to speak to your motion?
I'm going to speak against my own motion.
Go for it.
It's not the best procedure. Sorry for confusing. It's a double negative. Based on my comments of last week, and I have reflected a lot on the conversation that we had, I still think that a phased approach to planning where the Western Rise is incorporated with the respective landowner interests more broadly is important for a broader neighborhood plan for consideration. The bigger issue for me is actually the severing and the designation of the Western Rise as a future planning area and not integrating it with the Eastern Rise. So while I appreciate where you're coming from, Councillor Greenlaw, and I'm trying to move this forward, the piece that I'm actually most challenged by is the designation of the area of the Western Rise as a future planning area. I think it makes good sense when we're doing neighborhood planning to incorporate as many of the peripheral and contextual components to that particular parcel of land. And so that first bullet point, I actually think is a reasonable ask.
Okay. Councillor Pettingill.
And this is, maybe I'm just dense, but for me, 1 and 3 are saying the same thing as in the original resolution. So I guess I'm not understanding the difference between saying it should be one planning area. We should plan the whole thing together. That cuts out 1 and 3 as options to me. I'm not sure how we do 1 and plan the whole thing cohesively. That's why I think 1 and 3 both have to go from my perspective. And so I'm just wondering if my colleague can explain, why phased planning approach for the Western Rise is different than considering it as a future planning area, because a phased seems to suggest we're pushing planning into the future, into different phases. And so I'm not sure.
Councillor Greenlaw?
What if the motion were more along the lines of moving the entire planning process forward without splitting the property? That's not good wording, but because that's what I'm going for, that the planning process remains as is right now, i.e. the expectation is that the entire property is planned at the same time.
I will withdraw my motion.
Motion in the seconder? Was that Councillor Pettingill? Yeah. Motion withdrawn? Yeah. Okay. So we're back to the starting point with this one, folks. Councillor Pettingill?
So I will try then that council support a cohesive planning approach for the Eastern and Western Rises together.
Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Greenlaw. Would you like to speak to this version?
Yeah, so I think in my mind anyways, makes clear what I have in mind is that we plan the whole thing together, totally understand that in terms of development and some of the specifics, certain areas are going to move forward much faster than others, and there's realities on the ground. So this isn't saying it all has to be built in a certain order at a certain way at a certain time, but it's that we come up with that cohesive plan, that 40-year cohesive plan as one large plan, and then we move forward from there.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hamilton, then Stoner.
I'm going to speak against the motion, and it's not because I don't believe that the whole area could be planned better altogether. But I believe when we have very large parcels of land, it's the landowner should have the ability, should have the right to come to us to develop a portion of the land if they see fit. If that's what they would like to move forward with, I think a developer should have, a landowner should have the right to come forward with the portion of land that they would like to have to see planned and developed.
Thank you. Councillor Stoner.
Thank you. Through the chair, I will be supporting this motion, and thank you to my council colleague for clarifying what it was that I was trying to put on the table. I do think that it is important from a neighborhood planning process, and the intent here is that an applicant can definitely bring forward the rezoning of a rezoning application should, as per the OCP language, the rezoning application should only be considered in combination with the development of a sub-area plan consistent with the policies in the OCP. And so this is a very large parcel of land. It's a unique parcel because it's a unique neighborhood planning process because it's a single proponent who is leading it. But I think it still is really important that we have a fulsome understanding of what the long-term vision is for that neighborhood and how it interacts with the parcels around it. And I think that there is some give and take here that needs to be achieved in terms of really understanding what then are the expectations that we're putting on this neighborhood planning process. What is the level of detail that we're asking for, and what is actually reasonable to be asking for? And I think that is maybe where the gut check needs to happen, as opposed to just severing it entirely. I think we need to have a broader conversation around what level of detail we're expecting from the sub-area plan that can help inform a phased development or rezoning application. So that's why I'm supportive of keeping it as a whole, but perhaps having a conversation around the depth of what we're expecting from the sub-area plan.
Thank you. Councillor Anderson, did I see your hand?
Thank you, Mayor Herford. I feel that the proponents, the North Carpet proponents' rationale for their request is understandable. The significant monies have been spent on the planning process by the applicant thus far, and there are significant uncertainties relating to elevation, standards and the transportation master plan evaluation upcoming, presumably, of the connector, significant issues in the way of clarity for development rights on the Western Rise. So I think it is simply just reasonable and understandable, the approach that's being proposed by the development applicant.
Thank you. I'm going to go to staff. Could you read the motion again? I've heard some comments here. I just want to make sure that this motion is actually capturing the intent of the comments that are hearing. And so it's clear in my mind.
That council support a cohesive planning approach for the eastern and western rises together.
Having some challenges around cohesive because a future planning area a future plan may speak to the other plan. Like, I don't know that that's as specific as I'm hearing the voices around the table think that it is. So I don't think, I think at this point with that wording, I appreciate the intent, but I don't think that quite gets us there. I think it's the best version I've heard here tonight as far as trying to accomplish that, but I don't know that it doesn't get across that threshold for me, and so I won't be supporting. But yeah, go ahead, Councillor Pettingill.
So just so I'm clear, I mean, all I was trying to get to is, and what I think I've heard in the comments is discomfort with splitting this into separate plans, and one we plan now and one is off in the future. I think the intent is a single plan. That's what I've heard from some of the comments. Happy to reword it. I guess what I'm looking for from my colleagues and understanding is the concern that there is still a wish to separate these into separate plans, or there is an agreement with a single plan. It's just how it's been phrased is not acceptable.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the comments from Councillor Stoner around maybe a different level of detail required in a certain area for to acknowledge that it's going to be a phased, likely to be a phased development when it actually gets to that portion. And I think in a large parcel, that's totally acceptable. And I don't think this was the intent coming in from the proponent, but as lessons were, or as information was sort of discovered throughout the process, it's led to this need to adjust in some way. And I think that pushing forward might not be entirely like in the same level of detail in an area that has these constraints that we've now come to light is challenging. So I like that nuance. I'm just not sure quite how to capture that in an amendment to the current motion, and that's what's giving me pause on this. But we need to get somewhere here. I see some scribbling. Councillor Stoner, do you have a suggestion here, or someone around the table help me? Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Hamilton. And then
point of order. I think we have a motion on the table. Do we need to rescind it, amend it, rescind it? Are we still discussing it?
We're at a decision point for that. I'll call the question unless there's an amendment. Councillor Storm.
I don't have a particular amendment, but I am considering referring this back to committee of the whole for further discussion. I think that there was a lot of confusion at the committee of the whole discussion, and I think there still is this evening. And so I feel uncomfortable voting on it at this point. So I wonder if I'm seeing a few nods around the table. I'm just cognizant that if I refer it back to committee of the whole, staff needs some direction on what they're bringing back. So I don't have a motion at the moment. So that's where I'm at. That's why I'm scribbling, but I'm challenged with where we're currently at.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Pettingill.
So maybe a suggestion is to refer a decision on a cohesive plan for the Eastern and Western Rise to a committee of the whole. So that proposes my motion as the outcome, but it gives us as committee of the whole as a chance to discuss and decide if we actually want to go that direction and add some nuance or whatever we want to do.
Okay, and that was your motion. Who seconded that? Sorry, Councillor, is that a fair? Would you consider that a friendly amendment? Or can we do that? Or what do we have to do to propose an amendment? Would you are you amending your own motion there, Councillor Pettingill?
Sure.
Sure. Is there a seconder for that amendment? Councillor Greenlaw seconds. Thank you. With that, so this is on the amendment. We'll call the question.
Which is to refer it to committee of the whole.
The amendment is making the recommendation, but also referring it to committee of the whole to flush out what the intent of that is and what that actually looks like. So the conversation there would be about the severing and about the cohesiveness. And I did hear some conversation around the nuances applied to the level of detail perhaps might be different in the Western Rise, but it should be included as one, and a discussion around that so we can have an informed discussion. Go ahead, Councillor Hamilton.
Just before calling the question, can I hear the whole motion?
Absolutely.
When
1 second.
respond, yeah.
So this will be the main motion as amended, that council refer the following motion to a committee of the whole, that council support a cohesive planning approach for the eastern and western rises together. So that was what you'll be voting on.
Okay. Does that satisfy your question? Okay. So we're still amending that to get there. So on the amendment, all in favor? Motion carries. Okay. Now on the main motion as amended. Any comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. And that took care of bullet point 3 as well. That was part of that. So in my assessment, I just want to make sure I think those things are bundled up together. So next is the motion council confirm the previous council's direction to limit development nodes that the 200 meter. Moved by Councillor Stoner and seconded by Councillor Greenlaw. Discussion on this one? Councillor Anderson?
Mayor Herford, I will not be supporting this recommendation. The 200 meter level is an arbitrary figure. It used to be 300 in the District of Squamish. It was changed with the last OCP, and that OCP was very much oriented to favoring downtown development. It is not the practice in other municipalities, and some of the technical information behind that has been provided to council already. It affects transportation infrastructure planning, backup access, emergency access for Valley Cliff, future transit planning. It may also sterilize other lands in the vicinity, including lands owned by the Squamish Nation, effectively. There's other infrastructure costs such as diking and other major trade-offs we make in our growth management and our land use planning policies that we also need to consider. So with those considerations, I will not be supporting this recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Hamilton.
Thanks very much. I also will not be supporting the recommendation. I do agree with the spirit of the 200 meter elevation limit. We shouldn't be sprawling all too far up the mountain. I agree that we shouldn't be spending additional money on infrastructure. But I believe that an arbitrary line of 200 meters can cut us into a strange scenario where there may be a development area that's at 210 meters that is very suitable and very critical for connecting. And if we stick to an arbitrary line, we don't have that flexibility. And I think it's important to take each scenario in its wholesome view to say, is it sensible to develop this little bit more? Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor French, followed by Stoner.
Thanks, Mayor. I'm speaking against the motion, and there's just no data. There's no supporting science, and I can't find any financial information that suggests 200 meters is too expensive to build above. I prefer to work with data, science, and costing info, so I won't be supporting this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Stoner and then Greenlaw Pettingill.
I won't rehash all of my comments from last week. They still stand. I just want to clarify that other communities do use a similar principle-based approach to managing their growth. West Vancouver, Coquitlam are examples that have been provided by the proponent. Yes, they use different heights, but it is an approach that is used commonly in principle, a principle-based approach to how we manage our growth over time.
Thank you, Councillor Stoner. Councillor Greenlaw.
Yes, I will be supporting this motion. In addition to the control of sprawl up the mountains, I think it is also an important point that it does impact your ability to have active transportation and low carbon footprints living up there. I was actually talking to a friend who lives above 200 meters, one of the few houses in Squamish, and she was talking about how she gave up on e-biking up that hill because it was so much work. So it is actually a fairly important threshold, I think.
Thank you, Councillor Pettingill.
It's been covered. I will be supporting the motion. Won't rehash things. Thanks.
Thank you. Speaking in favor of the motion as well, I think we have a change of this. This policy is best addressed through consideration at OCP level, and I welcome that conversation at that time. But I'll be supporting. So with that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Councillor French, Hamilton, Anderson opposed. Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we're going to the council support designated areas of commercial use as appropriate and identified, and so on. That bullet point moved by Councillor Stoner, second by Councillor Pettingill. Any discussion here? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. This next one's a bit, so council support ensuring consistency between the amount of commercial area and maximum potential residency capacity of the neighborhood through future plan amendments as presented in the North Crumpet neighborhood plan update, proposed phased plan report. Moved by Councillor Stoner, second by Councillor French. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Any opposed on that one? No? Okay. Thank you. Next, we have that council direct North Crumpet project staff team to address potential community expectations regarding protection. That bullet point. I won't read out the whole one. Moved by Councillor Stoner. I'll second that, and I'll speak to it briefly. Some of these are intertwined with the motion that we passed that we sort of changed direction on earlier, but I think are still appropriate to include. This won't be actioned until after we have our subsequent discussion around it at committee of the whole. Is my intent here, even though it appears slightly disjointed. So with that, I'll call a question. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Fair enough. Councillor Hamilton opposes. Next is that council reject requests for any resolution that limits opportunities to ensure preservation of trails, terrestrial and riparian ESA areas on the Western Rise, should those lands not achieve any development rights as part of the current neighborhood planning process. Moved by Councillor Stoner, second by Councillor Greenlaw. Discussion? Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Anderson.
Thank you. I feel that at this point in any development planning and application process, this would be an unprecedented attenuation of private property rights in making this recommendation. It is not the process that was pursued, for example, in the Garibaldi Springs case, where we also addressed environmentally sensitive lands. This is a regulatory taking, and it's not one that I can support. Thank you.
Thank you. I think this motion here is also tied up in the whole concept of severing, and I find it challenging the way that we've broken this up, and that's why this is this has been included. I do think that, so I think we'll have to take away the decisions from tonight and the change of direction and put together a coherent sort of a more coherent process that will address the issues that some of these topics are slightly or providing some friction on. So we'll figure out where those overlaps are and address them at that point. And so with that, I'll call the question on this piece unless there's further comment.
Sorry, it's not clear to me how we can make a decision on what we do with the Western Rise when we're deferring a decision, a conversation about whether or not it can be split between Eastern and Western to a future committee of the whole. It's not clear to me how we're not impeding our discussion by making this motion, impeding our future discussion by making this motion.
This motion, I think, really reflects keeping the Western Rise, whether it's in or out, at the same, given the same consideration, is essentially what we're saying here, from my assessment. I'm open to more. Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Pettingill.
I considered putting forward a different wording of this because I found the wording of this one a bit confusing, but I thought, in my mind, this is effectively saying that sort of regardless of what happens with the Western Rise and different planning and so on, it's important to protect the trails and environmentally sensitive areas. So that's the key piece from this. And I think it's fine to reinforce that. It is important to me, but I do think, coming out of our committee of the whole discussion, we may want to tweak and reconfirm a few things. And so maybe there's some time to clarify that. But for me, the general principle of protecting trails and riparian ESA areas and so on the Western Rise, regardless of what happens, is important. And so that's why I would support this resolution.
Thank you. I also, I tend to agree. And I think that following this, this meeting, there will need to be, I'm unclear the sort of order of operations and where the points. I'm willing to bet that we'll need to provide more guidance than we've been able to get through in the last meeting, and our attempt at doing that here at the next committee of the whole meeting where it comes back to us. Councillor Hamilton.
Yeah, I'll say I'm going to speak against this motion. I absolutely agree. It's critical to preserve trails, terrestrial riparian areas, absolutely essential. But the way this is worded, we're rejecting any request for any resolution that limits any opportunities to preserve trails. And I think that and all these things, I don't see how it's not read as a blanket, no negotiation, can't develop.
I'm going to propose an amendment where we include this in our committee of the whole, in that upcoming committee of the whole meeting where we address the severing. I think that might be an appropriate course of action. So is there a seconder? Councillor Pettingill, do you have specific enough language for that this decision get referred to that meeting as well? Okay. So on the amendment, all in favor of the amendment? Thank you. And then now back to the main motion as amended. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you for working through that, Council. It'll cross some things off the list, and we'll address that again coming up. And next, we're on to first three readings. District of Squamish Intermunicipal Transportation Network Services Business License Agreement. We've got staff waiting patiently for us. Thank you for your patience, and I will turn it over to you.
Thank you and good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Jessie Fletcher, planner with Community Planning. I'm here tonight to give a brief presentation on the Intermunicipal Transportation Network Services Business License Agreement Bylaw and Business License Bylaw. So today we are presenting Council to Council with two bylaws, which would repeal and replace two existing bylaws. These bylaws authorize the Intermunicipal Business License Scheme, the IMBL, for transportation network services, which are also known as ride hailing. These bylaws are being replaced with updated bylaws that include 3 additional member municipalities who have recently signed onto the business license scheme. These bylaws are required to be updated for the district to remain a member of the agreement. Upon approval of ride-hailing in BC in 2019, the BC Passenger Transportation Board established 5 regions within which ride-hailing companies are authorized to operate. Municipalities would be given the opportunity to license these operations through business licensing, as well as regulate activities through bylaws such as the traffic bylaw. The district is part of Region 1, which includes 32 municipalities from Metro Vancouver, the Fraser Valley, and Squamish-Lillooet areas. A group of 25 of those municipalities entered into an intermunicipal business license agreement in early March 2020. The IMBL is a mechanism by which mobile business licenses are issued for an activity, in this case ride hailing, throughout a region. If this mechanism does not exist, non-resident business licenses are generally required in each municipality within which a mobile business operates. Under the IMBL, a single business license is offered, which would enable a business to operate in all participating municipalities. The City of Vancouver administers the IMBL licenses and collects revenue. After covering its cost, revenue is then distributed to municipalities based on the number of pickups and drop-offs that occur within its boundaries. Detailed trip data is collected by the province and shared with municipalities. To allow the new entrants, the District of Hope, District of Kent, and City of Mission to the IMBL scheme, each participating municipality must approve and enact a new IMBL agreement and bylaw prior to May 31st, 2023. If approved, the expanded license comes into effect on June 1st, 2023. This would bring the number of participating municipalities from 25 to 28 of the 32 eligible Region 1 municipalities. The other change to the bylaw would be to remove language around the initial license year, as the program is now in its 3rd year. Staff recommend that the district give first 3 readings to both bylaws, bylaw number 2972 and 2973. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, any questions on this one? Councillor Pettingill.
I'm just wondering if we have seen any activity or revenue or anything in terms of ride hailing in Squamish.
Thank you. Through the mayor, yes, in 2022, we had 45 pickups and 1,100 drop-offs within the district, and we received $64.92.
Thank you. Any further questions on this one? Seeing none, we've got 2 recommendations before us. Are you moving both of those together? You have to move them separately?
I think I have to move them separately.
Yeah, we'll do separately. So you do the first one. Moved by Councillor Stoner, seconded by Councillor Greenlaw. Any comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Now we're looking for the second piece. Moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor French. Any comments? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay. Moving on. Next, we have a staff report from Corporate Services, Federation of Canadian Municipalities, FCM, Partnership for Municipal Innovation. Ms. Latimer.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Megan Latimer. I'm the General Manager of Public Safety. This evening, I'm here to present to you a brief update on the district's partnership project with the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, or FCM, in Zambia, and to seek council support for an upcoming mission to Zambia. So just to provide a little bit of background, the district is currently a partner in the FCM project called the Partnership for Municipal Innovation, Women in Local Leadership, or its acronym PMI-WIL. This project takes place over 6 years. It began in 2021 and runs till 2027. and is coordinated by FCM and fully funded by Global Affairs Canada. The project is an international partnership between FCM, select Canadian municipalities, and 5 international local government associations in Ghana, Zambia, Benin, Cambodia, and Sri Lanka. The district is partnered with the local government association in Zambia, and the overarching goals of the project are to increase women's capacity to get involved and lead in local governance, and also increasing local government's capacity to deliver inclusive, gender-responsive services. The next phase of this project involves a strategic planning meeting in Ottawa on June 14th for municipal staff partners to plan for future phases of the project. The district's research and projects coordinator is planned to travel to Ottawa to represent the district at this meeting. Following this, an overseas trip to Zambia at the end of June will take place to deliver a multi-day workshop on gender-responsive service delivery and stakeholder engagement. This workshop will be conducted in partnership with the District of Squamish, the City of Edmonton, FCM staff, and representatives from the Local Government Association of Zambia. 2 staff delegates from the District of Squamish have been invited to participate in these workshops in Zambia, which is planned to be Ms. Glenday and myself. And 1 elected official from each Canadian municipality has also been invited to attend the workshops in Zambia as representatives. Staff have previously discussed with the mayor and FCM and have recommended that for this first mission, Councillor Stoner participate in order to share her experiences over the last 5 years as a woman in local politics. As the project runs for another 4 years, we expect there to be additional opportunities for other council members to be involved in future missions. The trip to Zambia is fully funded by Global Affairs Canada and is administered and coordinated by FCM's project team. Upon return, staff plan to prepare a detailed update to Council on the progress and outcomes of the PMI Will project in Zambia, as well as the previously supported project in Jordan. So staff's recommendations this evening are that Council consider the District of Squamish confirming the participation of 1 council member to accompany staff to the upcoming workshop in Zambia, and that staff report back to Council following the trip and provide a detailed update on the progress and outcomes of the PMI Will project, as well as the previously supported Jordan project. Thank you. I'll turn it back to Council for any questions.
Thank you. Council, do you have any questions for Ms. Latimer while we have her? Seeing none. I'm going to move the modified version of the staff recommendation, just adding that District of Squamish confirm the participation of 1 council member, and that council member is Councillor Stoner, to accompany staff to upcoming workshop to Zambia, and that staff report back to Council following the trip and provide a detailed update on the progress and outcomes of the PMI Will project. Seconded by Councillor French. And I'll just speak to it briefly. I think this is just a great opportunity and a new project that runs roughly in line with our term, as it's a 4-year project, and I look forward to the future opportunities to engage with the project. And I do think that Councillor Stoner is uniquely situated to participate in this, given her we had no travel opportunities last term, and we're now 4.5 years into this into your journey as elected official and mine. And I think it's totally appropriate that you represent us. I know you'll do a great job. Councillor Stoner will do a great job representing Squamish on the international stage, and I'm looking forward to the future opportunities that might present for all of us. Any other comments, Councillor Stoner?
Thank you for the kind words, and really excited about this opportunity that was actually started in our last term with the leadership from CAO Glenday and Mayor Elliott. To correct you, it's actually a 6-year project, and so we were actually able to do some introductory work with Zambia at the end of last term and just present a welcoming video to the additional, or to the community that we've been partnered with. And so looking forward to the opportunity, but just wanting council colleagues to know that there will be other opportunities as well. I was actually looking back to my memories, and it was back in June of 2019, so almost 4 years ago, that we actually welcomed a delegation of folks from Cambodia and from Jordan and a previously related project. So there'll be lots of opportunity to get other folks up to speed and involved in this project as it continues to evolve.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson.
Yes, speaking in favor of the motion, I believe that the element of having a councillor participating, it raises the profile of our involvement. It also may foster the continuity of support for an initiative like this. I'll also add that Zambia has a special relationship to Canada in that we have an enormous presence in the economy of that country. And mining companies based in Vancouver and Toronto in particular have an enormous presence in Zambia. So I think it's entirely appropriate. I'm really glad to see our country participating in an initiative like this to build social infrastructure and capacity building in Zambia. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other comments, I call the question. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Moving on through our agenda, we had no late agenda items, correspondence, action requested. We have correspondence referred from the consent agenda. We'll go in order that they appeared there. Sorry, I just made paper notes on that. Oh, here we are. So we had item 1 was pulled, I believe, B1. I believe it was Councillor Pettingill. Like to speak to that?
Yeah, thanks. And it's a letter asking us to consider directing staff to, I guess, more accurately reflect the gas that's used in many of our homes and businesses as fossil gas or fracked gas rather than natural gas, which is I would say an industry marketing term, and it does lead to a lot of public misunderstanding about the risks and harms of this fuel source. And so from that perspective, it's compelling. But I also, I think there's a little more to the story. We are seeing now Fortis pushing sort of reusing or misusing the terms renewable natural gas and RNG includes hydrogen from fossil gas, and it's not really, a lot of really slippery words. And so I'm a bit hesitant, though, to get down to a rabbit hole of council dictating all of our staff's language. I know our staff are pretty on top of these things. And so I guess what I felt at this point a little more comfortable is just to, thank our staff for being aware of these things and paying attention, and encourage them to keep paying attention and make sure that encourage them to make sure they're using very accurate language that helps the public understand their energy choices. And again, I think we're doing a pretty good job of that. So I don't want to get into dictating language choice at this point, but I think it is something for us all to keep top of mind and be really aware of the language that corporations, especially fossil corporations, are using these days. So I guess I will leave it there. If there's no other comments, I would move to receive.
Okay, thank you. You're seconding that? I'll just speak to it briefly. I think it was really language is so important, and I thought it was really a good read. So thank you for highlighting it here, and I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we had item 4. I believe, was it Councillor Stoner? You pulled that.
Yeah, this is a letter from previous Executive Director Maureen Mackell from Squamish Helping Hands, who has retired after 13 years of service in that role. Has been a real exceptional leader for our community, was the visionary behind Under One Roof, which is an amazing asset for those, especially for everybody in our community, but especially those who are more in need. But is really welcoming to anybody and everybody who wants to go in and spend some time with our community. So I want to thank Maureen for her service, and also welcome Lori Pine, who is well known throughout the corridor. We brought her down from Whistler. So excited to have her here. And just to give folks an update that Maureen Mackell will still be sitting on the board for the Squamish Community Housing Society for the time being, for the liaison from Helping Hands, but that might transition over time. But just so folks are aware of that update for the Squamish Community Housing Society. And I will move receipt after that discussion.
Thank you. Are you seconding that? Yeah. And would you like to speak to it?
Yeah, just want to thank Maureen so much for her service, and also just reflecting on this. Maureen has definitely been a driver, but there's other communities that would fight a helping hands or some of these sorts of facilities in Squamish, and I think our staff and prior councils have been pretty strong leaders in making sure some of these places can go forward, and so I think. I feel it's part of my obligation. Hopefully we all feel it's sort of our obligation to carry forward some of the work that Maureen has spearheaded and keep these sorts of projects going with strong support. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll take this opportunity to thank Maureen, although we all know that she's not done yet. As Councillor Stoner already mentioned, she's staying on the Housing Society for the time being, and she has been a absolute force of nature for shaping our community, and I think it's unlikely that she's to walk away from that particular role, even though this title isn't something that she has going forward. So thank her, so thank you to Maureen for her service in that role, and I'm happy to support. So with that, I'll call a question. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Next, we have item 5. So this is the Fortis letter, and I pulled this one, and reading the letter, some questions came to my mind, and I wanted to seek your support in replying and asking questions, but also to seek out if there were other clarifications that you wanted. So I'll start us by just going through the I think it's 4 questions that and please don't get too overly stuck on the wording, just the general concepts we're going to have. I'll work to refine this when it actually turns into a letter. But the outstanding questions I have from the letter is the letter refers to Fortis BC and our pipeline contractor. The language seems to leave room for interpretation and perhaps contractors of other varieties being excluded from this policy. The subsequent bullets use broader language. So could this be further clarified? That was it felt like they're leaving a bit of room there. I'm just wondering what that was. Next was, is Fortis able to commit to no living allowance, or an LOA, will be provided to any part of the workforce working for or performing work on behalf of Fortis BC if residing in Squamish in any fashion? Maybe in this time frame, because they're making a time frame commitment. Various charts and graphs, the next point, various charts and graphs have been shared with the District of Squamish and the public in the past depicting the workforce numbers over time. Please provide updated workforce projections to provide clarity as to what is being committed to at this time and what effect, if any, this has on subsequent years. And then Indigenous contractors are mentioned in the final bullet point. Please provide some further context. How many workers fall into this category? What percentage of workforce does this represent? In the weeks since the writing of this letter, is there additional information on accommodation plans and mitigation measures? I'm open to other questions. If anyone else would like anything else addressed specifically stated in the letter. I know we have a long list of things we'd love to get Fortis BC's feedback on, but try to keep it to the topic there. Go ahead, Councillor Pettingill.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a hard line that this be included in the letter, but in general, I would like to know, are they planning that everyone's commuting, or are they sort of pausing until they get their housing in order? Are they sort of encouraging people or looking the other way if people are sort of doing camper vans on streets and all these sorts of things? Are they making sure their employees understand our rules around camping and our expectations there? And so some of these things aren't really covered in the letter that I see.
So maybe I was trying to get a little bit to the how that they would, which is the LOA, I think is that. The rest of, I don't know how granular we want to get with that piece, but I'm open to, if there's a question, a specific piece that you want me to ask, I'm open to. I think I'm trying to drive at the same thing without and staying at an appropriate level, but I'm open to feedback. Councillor Stoner.
Yeah, I think I had a similar question, and the way that I framed it was just what is the impact of this decision on the project timeline, or is it going to have an impact? So are they delaying the project as a result, or do they still expect the project to go forward at the same rate, given that we haven't yet?
Okay, I think I can include that in the piece around the workforce numbers, and just I'll add timeline, address timeline to my notes as I actively do that right now. Okay. Do you think that would just sort of looping it in there somehow would address your concern? Okay. Any other comments on this piece? Oh, Councillor Anderson and then Pettingill.
Mayor Herford, I appreciate you highlighting the topic of Indigenous contractors, and it's I have a broader I think that there is a broader interest here. These are real people with real local stories, and it's not only concerning accommodation, but investments that young people typically are making in the Squamish Nation community and applying themselves to not only Fortis but WLNG contracts. I've had a number of friends involved and other local people starting to start businesses, and they have a story, and sometimes it comes back to us in the shape of housing infrastructure is referred to here, but how do they access the waterfront for the water taxi they want to buy to take people across the water for Fortis and wood fiber projects? So these are interesting stories and of interest to us, and I'm glad you've highlighted it. And I hope that their participation and involvement and perspectives will be part of our perspective ongoing.
Thank you for that, Councillor Anderson. So I'm going to, oh, sorry, Councillor Pettingill. I saw your hand earlier.
Yeah, just wanted to add, I mean, I don't take this letter as, oh, hey, everything's fixed now. But I think it does demonstrate to me that, you know, because we hear over and over again, oh, well, it's going ahead. There's nothing we can do. We just got to suck it up and accept it. And I think for me, this is a sign that there's value in us pushing back. That's important that we stand up for our community and our values. And again, not pretending that this has all the answers and gives us everything we want. But for me, it's important to keep pushing. And it's a sign that I think we get at least a little bit of traction and encourages me to push more, which maybe isn't what they would prefer, but I think it's what we need to do.
Thank you for that perspective, Councillor Pettingill. I'm looking for clarity with seeking answers to these questions to understand how much we could celebrate this or not, how much weight we should give this piece. So I look forward to that clarity. So with that, I'm going to request that Council direct the mayor to reply with questions as discussed in the meeting here tonight. Moved by Councillor Stoner. Or sorry, I moved that. Councillor Stoner second. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you for that, Council. And now we're on to final stretch. We had no late agenda item, or no, we did all that. Approval of minutes. We didn't have any minutes referred. Any business arising from minutes? No, we have no committee minutes and reports. Any notice of motion? Seeing none. We have no council staff in-camera announcements. We had no unscheduled public attendance. Any open question periods? You have a question? Amazing. Yeah, please. We'll just get it ready for you, and then you'll start by stating your name and neighborhood, and go ahead. Yeah, the mic's yours. The green light's on.
Hello. All good. Hey, my name's Alex Johnson. I have two questions or two topics, so I'll try and be really, really quick. But before I do, I just want to say I really appreciate coming here and watching these council meetings. And I don't really have any specific agenda. Like, obviously, I want to know more about where I live. But I do just really enjoy like reading a room and following along with how procedures are done. And that's my idea of entertainment or something that I like to do. And I hope that other people would do the same. I think there's a lot of value to coming here. So with that, I will ask my first question. If I plan to start a business next week, why can I not get my name on the number 9 bus? Like, why can I not get my business name put number 9 Alex Company? Because I see that Quest have their name on that, and regardless of whether they've closed or not, I just think it's like not very fair on the community to favor a business that are a for-profit business. Like, we don't have like the downtown one that says the library or something like that. So I just think that it would be like really good to manage the names that we're putting on things like that, because imagine my business was on there and for whatever reason you didn't agree with how I had business practice, you're then going to associate the bus with that business practice. And if that's personal, that impacts your aspirations to get onto that bus and use it.
Thank you. That's great feedback. I think we can take that on with staff going forward, as it is likely to require a name change. I will point out though that buses going to UBC say UBC on them, and buses going to SFU say SFU on them. So there's a bit of a precedent in general, but at the same time, that's fair comment.
Fair enough. Yeah, I understand that totally. And it could be more of a provincial thing. I don't know if that's like anything that you guys are involved with. So I guess more my question appropriately is like, who would I approach about that? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. We'll actually take that to, I can handle taking that to our staff that handle transit, and I'll work with staff to see what's appropriate there.
Thank you. Okay, my next thing, as I said, I like to come here, and sometimes I do tune in online, and I've definitely experienced hearing you not witness anyone online while I am there. So maybe that's like a little like something just as a note. But I heard you talking, this is for the mayor, I heard you talking about the WorkSafe actions that you were involved with a few weeks ago, and there's the memorial across the road. I'm in a really interesting situation with WorkSafe BC, and I will be writing to the MLA, and I would really like to include you, the mayor, and as well as the BC College of Physicians. And my question is, would anyone else like to be CC'd in on that, or are there any other organizations or people that you would recommend that I include in on that letter?
I think what we could do is maybe I'll propose that you and I get together, have a discussion around what's happening, and see if we can if I can point you in a direction or bring in any additional bodies or whatever. So, but I'll take that up. We can take that up together, and we'll figure it out.
Thanks. Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's a really important thing that I've kind of uncovered, and it's a really interesting situation that I've been in. I've actually ended up having to document a lot of it now, but it really speaks to just a culture that's kind of been developed under this organization, and I feel like a lot of employers actually don't really care about your safety because they have insurance, and it kind of develops a really toxic work environment. The way that WorkSafe BC are handling themselves is not acceptable at all. And I really look forward to bringing this further up the chain of command.
Okay, thank you. We'll arrange a meeting. We'll see if we can provide some guidance there. Thank you. Council or staff announcements. Councillor French.
Thanks, Mayor. I wanted to share that on Sunday, May 7th, the Squamish Youth Triathlon was held at Brennan Park. Kids ranging in an age from 2 years old. Yes, you heard that correct. 2 years of age, up to 16 participated. Volunteers from young siblings to grandparents and everything in between helped to make it happen. I think everyone had fun. I didn't see any tears. That doesn't guarantee there weren't any, but I didn't see any. And I'm based on watching all of the participants cross the finish line. Well, maybe not all. There were teams, so I didn't see the swimmers and the cyclists cross the finish line. But nonetheless, some amazing athletes crossed that finish line, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's an Olympian in amongst the participants of the event on the weekend. And then Squamish Can had its annual general meeting last night, and I attended as the council representative on the Food Policy Council. Councillor Stoner attended as well. The event included the election of a new board of directors, 2 returning directors, and 5 enthusiastic, keen new board members will join the local climate action network leadership team. Squamish can reported out on their 2022 year in the meeting, and it was off the charts, a huge year for the organization. And then we were given a bit of a look ahead into 2023, and it looks like 2023 and the year ahead will be even bigger for Squamish Climate Action Network.
Thank you. Councillor Stoner.
Thank you. Through the chair, I just want to share with staff and the community that earlier in May 3rd to 5th, council was well represented at the Lower Mainland Local Government Association. We missed you there, Councillor Anderson, but I know you had lots on the go. But we should be proud of our district for showing up big time. Councillor Pettingill had the privilege of and did an excellent job interviewing Minister Bowen Ma on emergency management and climate readiness. Mayor Herford was chair of a session on running a positive election campaign and reflections from the 2022 election with some really great panelists. And I had the pleasure of sitting on a panel discussing code of conduct with some really great folks as well. And in addition to that, I think we took home the prize of having the most resolutions put forward, which I thought that we actually had very few, but it turns out that we had like 5 or 6 in the end. And many of them actually created a lot of really good debate on the floor. So it was a really positive session. I hope my council colleagues had a great time connecting with folks across the Lower Mainland area and made some good connections. One thing I always bring back is it's really helpful to learn from other communities and to build those networks so that, while we continue to really be leaders on a lot of things here in Squamish, we can learn a lot from our neighbors across the region as well. And that's one of the values of going to conferences like this. So just wanted to report out. Thanks everybody for being there.
Thank you, Councillor Stoner. Anyone else before I go in? No, okay. So yeah, thank you for highlighting that. The Lower Mainland Local Government Association conference was great. It was great to have everyone attending and participating. I think everyone got up to the mic during the resolution sessions and very engaged throughout, and lots of learning. I really enjoy working with my colleagues across the region on various initiatives and understanding perspectives. I would like to highlight that. That's my next point. That Councillor Pettingill and I sit on the board of the Lower Mainland Local Government Association. My seat is appointed by through my role at the Squamish-Lillooet Regional District, but Councillor Pettingill loves elections so much that he's elected to his position as a member at large and successfully ran and was elected again to that spot. So congratulations for taking on yet another election and another victory for you. So congratulations. And lots of good work happened over that time, and I really appreciate everyone for being participating and being engaged there. And that was really just such a big piece of our month so far. On May 10th was McHappy Day, which is a fundraiser held by McDonald's to support Ronald McDonald's Children's Charities. And I know, I think you participated, Councillor French. I don't know if others did. I was lucky enough to work the drive-through for a few hours on the 10th, which I hadn't done since 1996. I couldn't find my name tag though, but I actually work in that building, and I hadn't been back since. So it was great to participate, and the people coming through the drive-through were so generous with their donations, and there was an option to buy some socks that were mostly profit that goes to the charity as well. Was great. It did shock my mother, who came through the drive-through and had no idea it was happening, and was maybe concerned. But all in all, it was great to see the community out. The fire department brought truck past, was doing tours. We had our emergency, the ambulance service was there. The RCMP were there. I was able to connect with Patrick Weiler for a little bit of overlap in between as he was getting ready to start his shift. That's the sock pin. Nice. So yeah, it was a great day and a little bit of a time warp for me. And to keep that theme going, I followed that up on May 11th. I spent some time at Bracknell Elementary talking with elementary school students, and it was really interesting. Besides having gone to Bracknell Elementary myself, so back to the continuing the theme of revisiting that. It was great to chat right from, I think it was grade 1 all the way all the way up. And the questions were coming from such a place of curiosity. And it made me really reflect that is sometimes what's missing from some of the conversations and some of the questions that I'm asked out in the broader public. So I'm doing my best to take that lesson on myself and to approach things with that same level of like unbridled curiosity that almost every class exhibited. So it was great to be there and to do that. And those have been sort of the highlights of the last since our last regular meeting. So we have no motion to close. So now I'm looking for a motion to terminate, which Councillor Stoner moves, but seconded by Councillor French. All in favor. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, everybody.